Hello and welcome to the Monsters, Myths, and Mayhem podcast. This is episode 10, so it's going to be a guest episode. I'm the host, Silver. We got the standard co-host,
Chaotic.
and we actually got a special guest today, and that's...
Rusalka.
we got Rusalka on the Rusalka episode.
How convenient.
As a bit mentioned just a couple seconds ago, this episode's going to be about the Rusalka, which is a Slavic... I've heard it be called a mermaid, nymph, and a spirit. I don't... Many things. Do you know much about the Rusalka, Chaotic?
Just that it's a female amazing badass. That's about it.
Why, thank you.
What about you, Rusalka? Would you like to share anything about it? Your namesake?
Sure. Yeah. No. I mean, I get asked quite a bit what the origin of my name is. So it's something I definitely was conscious when I picked my name of what Rusalka are. As you kind of mentioned, they're from Slavic folklore, and they kind of run the gambit in terms of what they can represent. They've been everything from sort of benevolent, kind creatures that help provide water to crops and are symbols of fertility, to what I think people are more familiar with, which is the more demonic, sort of haunting creatures. Tend to be women, very pale-skinned women. Occasionally have like really long green hair or pale hair. And usually they're represented as a drowning victim, somebody who drowned. I've heard everything from women who were drowned themselves or murdered in bodies of water. And I've also heard women who were seen as unclean and were drowned for those sorts of purposes as well. But usually I've seen they've come to be known as sort of mermaid creatures, but often when I've actually seen them in folklore, they're pretty humanoid, like not really your typical mermaid, more like a nymph, sometimes really small, sometimes human size, but typically a woman that's fairly beautiful and oftentimes seen as tempting men to drown in various fashions, some more playful than others.
Yeah. Did you know that Rusalkas you can actually become a Rusalka?
Oh, and like by choice?
Yeah.
Oh.
Some of the ways, like, you can usually it's women dying violent deaths, sometimes murder, sometimes suicide, but usually it's death by drowning, and there's a chance they can become a Rusalka.
I know I read, when I was kind of brushing back up on this topic, I read that especially if a woman drowned during what's known as Trinity Week, which I guess is a particular week in June, you had a higher chance, I guess, a higher role of becoming a Rusalka if you happen to be lucky enough to drown during that period.
Yep.
But that was also a time period where I guess the Rusalkas that did exist could be especially active. So I think that's like part of the thought too, is that they were more active at drowning people during that time as well. I think I kind of went back and forth on that one. But don't swim in June, basically.
Yeah. June is when the beginning of June is is it 3? I think it's 3 weeks is what my notes say for Trinity Week.
It's a lot of weeks for a week. Very.
It's 2 off. It's okay.
That's fine. Yeah. Very close.
I thought it was 3 weeks because it said Trinity. Trinity's 3, so that's early June. You can also become a Rusalka if you're a baby. So unbaptized babies that die by drowning are said to become Rusalkas. I've seen one account where it mentioned that the babies become wisps, and then they become Rusalkas. But if the unbaptized baby dies by drowning, and within 7 years, if you baptize their handkerchief and throw it in the air, it makes them ascend to heaven instead of becoming Rusalkas.
There's a 7-year grace period on that?
Yeah, you got 7 years.
Oh, you have 7 years to decide if you want to send that baby to heaven. That's nice, at least.
You can only do it on one certain day, I believe, within Trinity Week.
Oh, okay.
So you got 7 tries in 7 years.
So you
Still
just
seems-
casually miss the week. You're just like, oh man, that sucks. On next year maybe.
Yeah, I gotta write this down. Gotta put this in my calendar.
Sometimes those types of Rusalkas are called mobkas, and those are some of the ways you can become Rusalkas from my notes. There vary in descriptions of what they look like, but the most common one is that they're universally beautiful in order to lure men into the water. But they usually they're said to be pale skin, have long loose hair, either blonde, light brown, red, or green. And it's said that the Rusalki, which is the plural form of Rusalka, are usually naked. And if they are dressed, they are depicted in torn up sundresses, or it's a long word here, Kosovorakas? Kosovorakas. Or
I
Russian.
drowned for one.
You drowned for one?
I drowned for one.
A Russian peasant shirt. Yeah.
Yeah. Kosovorotkas?
Yes, that's
Yeah. I am also the resident. I am Czech, so the resident pronunciation guide for all the Slavic words today. Well, I think the long, like unkept, untied up hair also in that time, like in the time period of this folklore, women tended to tie their hair back or have it like done up. So having the loose, unkempt hair was kind of a sign of sort of like a wild creature, an unclean creature. So I think that's one of the reasons they're often depicted with loose hair.
Their hair is also one of their main weapons. They use it to tie you up and drag you down to drown
Again, I would drown for one.
you. According to some Russian and Ukrainian beliefs, Rusalki have the appearance of small children and are sometimes compared to dolls. There's
Creepy.
there's a couple different variations on their appearances.
I did see one account that said there have been a few references to male Rusalka, but otherwise they are pretty predominantly women. In pretty much every iteration of like poems, stories, they are female. But there was a couple male ones, and I think it was again you had to die by drowning at a very particular time period, and then you have a chance of becoming a Rusalka.
They'd have a little bit more trouble seducing men into the water, so I'm going to guess.
You never know. You never know, especially at that time period.
That's true. That's
Yeah,
true.
especially with those sailors.
Yeah, those. Yeah,
They must.
All they had was themselves on the water for years at a time. So
They had manatees.
Matthew,
That's how the Little Mermaid came about.
please, what? Stop.
You must not have heard that story. Okay.
oh goodness.
Not versed in that one. Sure,
Not-
not.
I didn't know that was with the Little Mermaid. I knew that was the Mermaid myth, not Little Mermaid. I guess by abstraction, yes.
Triton's got some explaining to do. Some deep explaining.
I've been misled.
Do you think you guys could tell a Rusalka from? There's 3 very obvious ways to tell a Rusalka from a normal naked woman in the water.
I mean, I come across those all the time, so it is important to be able to tell
Can
the
I
difference.
come live by you? Can I just be over there?
Yeah, it's great. You just gotta be a little careful when you're by the water. But I'm not sure actually how I would potentially tell them apart, other than maybe by the fact they're trying to woo me into the water.
From my research that I've seen, the easiest way to tell is that they have no reflection in the water.
Mm,
Some of them have no pupils.
great. Just a
Uh,
solid iris, or like
Yeah, it's just a solid iris. It's
wow, that's a
pupils.
look. That's all right. All right.
Could also be confused too. Like some of those cosplayers, cosplay contacts could do the same thing.
It's true. You get a scleral lens on there. Lots of differences there.
One of the more obvious ways is they have no back.
Oh yeah, that might be the easiest one. You should have led with that one. That one's the that one's the easiest to tell.
Like Like they got the edge and everything, so you can see them. They look perfectly fine from the front, but when they turn around, it's just organs and bones.
What the fuck happened to their backs?
It's probably when they drowned, they got drugged down river. Be my guess. It doesn't really say.
Mainly not on the front, just always on their backs.
Yep. Well, when you hold someone underwater, sometimes it depends which.
I don't know. I'm upset about it.
That are you no longer willing to drown for?
I
now?
think I would still drown for them, but I'm a little weirded out that I would see their entire existence from their back. Just all the insides.
When you're looking at them from underwater as well, you just see their rotting corpse instead of the woman as well as another.
Yeah, I've heard that
no,
one.
I'd still drown for it.
Yeah, there's some there's some really great art where it has like the view above water and below water where she'll be like gorgeous above, but then underneath it's just like rotting flesh and bones, and it's always fun imagery.
I would share it if my notes would. I think I had a picture of one like that. My notes are not agreeing with me. I'll share one in the Discord if anybody.
I was about to say you shouldn't eat your homework since they're not agreeing with you. Shouldn't do that.
Yeah. Digital notes, digital food. Go back to Trinity Week real quick. Do you know how their behaviors changed during Trinity Week?
I think they get more like celebratory and they like to dance, but they also like to kill people more. So it's, I mean, just fun all around. It's our favorite week as Rusalka.
They come ashore. It's the 1 week they can't come ashore. And they swing and play from birch trees and willow trees.
Sounds like a good time.
And they gather together to perform circle dances under the moonlight. Anybody that happens to see them dancing in the moonlight gets forcefully compelled to dance with them till they die.
Perfect.
So they have to dance to death.
I mean, don't stare at naked women dancing in the moonlight.
They're also said to be, when they're out of water, they are perpetually moist.
I don't like that. I don't like how that sounds. I don't like that order of words. And I wish I could just erase it from my conscious memory, but there it is. Perpetually moist.
They're combing their hair with fishbone combs.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's stylish.
Okay, this was kind of like a 1 or 2 off. I seen the notes at the end of the week. They hold not the Rusalka, but the villagers. They're celebrating Trinity Week. They do a banishment ritual where they go to the graves where any of the drowning victims were laid to rest, and they give the Rusalka fried eggs and pour alcohol on their graves. And it said they brought pancakes as well, but they didn't say what they did with the pancakes. It's
a great one will always wonder. But I mean, those are things that definitely would placate me. So it makes sense.
Alcohol and pancakes, 110%.
Yeah, alcohol, pancake, eggs. But yeah, good time. Like then I'll just have a nap and go back to my watery grave.
They were also not really regarding Trinity Week, but the Rusalki also had there's something positive. I guess now that I'm thinking about it, it's also kind of neutral. Is they only went after men usually. They would often help children who were lost in the woods find their way back out. They are believed to love and protect children and save them from wild animals and being lost in the woods. And
yeah, I saw a couple things saying that they would occasionally help drowning people as well. I think it just depends on what mood they were in, but yeah, like helping lost children seemed to be a common theme. I also read that they are supposed to be like incredibly fast, like both swimming and running as well, which I wasn't aware of before, but I thought that was kind of cool too. So I guess they could swim better than anyone and save you if they wanted to.
Super speed and super strength. Well, sure, this just wasn't like Wonder Woman or something back in the day, just hiding out, and I guess drowning people would be. I don't know.
That's a little out of character. Also, the whole like missing back part. I don't remember that part of Wonder Woman, but maybe she skinned it over later. I don't know.
Yeah,
That's why she
maybe
wears the swords and stuff back there. You just can't see it.
That's right. She's accommodated for this. Yeah, I think one of my favorite types, which was brought to my attention by
that was wrong.
a Polish friend. So I don't know if it's like the Polish variety of Rusalka, but he had a folklore book that he showed me pages from, and they tickle people to death. Like they'll drown you by tickling you to death is one of the ways that some of the Rusalka will kill people.
Nope, you lost me. Do not ever tickle me.
Now you're very like hot and cold on the Rusalka.
Like as long as she's drowning me, like coming up to me and being her amazing badass self, like whatever. When we get under the water, if you look like a crone, that's fine. But like if you're gonna walk up to me and tickle me, we've got an issue.
The deal's off. Yeah.
Well, you're trying to hold your breath underwater. That seems like a very
I don't like being tickled above water either.
You could torture me with your best torture chamber stuff, and I probably would never tell you. But the second you start tickling me, I'll tell you anything you want to know. Just stop.
You heard it here first.
You know how to get answers out of chaotic.
Yeah. No truth serum necessary. Just a tickly feather.
Well, that's all I really kind of got here. Besides a couple different types of Rusalka, but basically Rusalki with different names. These are hard to pronounce. The Mavki is one of them. Lasku.
Let's see. You have Vodyanits. Wait, what is it? Vodyanitsi, Loshkotukhi, Mavki, Polodnitsi, Moriani. Is it Brodnitsi, Lobasti, Polodnitsi, Feranonk? Ooh, that one's. Feronki? Oh, okay. That's like I see it. That's like a Egyptian Rusalka. I wasn't familiar with that one. Interesting.
Yeah, it just looks like their name changes based on location, how to become, and how they became one. Things I forgot, I missed in my notes. Northern Russia Rusalka were usually old hags with big breasts and hunched back.
No wonder their back is hunched. My back is also hunched, like it happens.
The thing I missed was another group of myths claim that the Rusalka are water nymphs who marry the Wadanaj.
It's a good attempt.
Wadanaj are male water spirits who live in a great castle under the water and can change their shape at will.
Sounds like a good match. Yeah.
Yeah. I also remember seeing something about them Rusalka's trying to marry people, but it wasn't.
Oh.
It was like a one-off thing, probably. Imagine it's probably somebody's fan fiction of Rusalka's.
Well, I know that the opera, that's like the plot of the opera, essentially. Yeah, so it might be related to that, which is based on a bunch of fairy tales. So yeah, that might be part of it.
Guess we can start talking about the Rusalka in the media and stuff, since we get into the opera. I tried to watch the opera. It had Spanish subtitles, and I couldn't find the English ones.
I'm watching a Czech opera with Spanish subtitles.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
Luckily, we have Rusalka here, who knows more about it than me.
Yeah, the opera was actually when I lived in the Czech Republic, I went to a production of Rusalka, which is it's a Czech opera by Antonin Dvorak, and that was actually my first encounter with Rusalka, was that opera, and it kind of got me down the rabbit hole of looking into them. But the opera is based off of a specific set of fairy tales by Urban and Nemkova. And it's basically, when people ask me to give the too long didn't read version of it, it's The Little Mermaid, except everyone dies, is essentially Rusalka, the opera. And it's one of my favorites. Not that I'm a huge opera person, but I love the story of it, because essentially the main character is called Rusalka, but she is essentially a Rusalka. And she falls in love with a prince who is hunting for a white stag near the pond where she lives. And she begs her father to let her marry him, or to become a human so that she can marry him and love him. And he's horrified by this. He's like, humans are terrible. You don't want to be one. but she's insistent, says they're in love. And the most famous song from the opera is the song to the moon, where she sings to the moon, basically saying, like, please help me, show him I love him, tell him I love him. And then Yeji Baba, who's basically a Baba Yaga figure, like a witch lady, she comes and says to Rusalka, I can grant your wish, but you'll be mute, so you won't be able to speak. You'll be a human, so you'll no longer be immortal. And there's a catch. If you don't capture the prince's love, you're going to be damned to hell as a demon, and that man will die. The prince will die. And Rusalka was like, I got this. Don't worry. His love is assured. But unfortunately, that's not the case. And while the prince does like fall in love with her initially and arranges a marriage, a foreign princess comes. The foreign princess starts kind of saying, like, isn't it weird that you're in love with this girl who can't even talk to you? Like, you know nothing about her. She seems like she's kind of like an evil creature that's like seduced you. And it kind of worries the prince. And then the prince ends up falling in love with the foreign princess. And so Rusalka and kisses her in front of Rusalka on their wedding day. And Rusalka gets a little upset about that. And basically tries to run over and embrace the prince. He rejects her. So then she becomes a demon. The foreign princess, in turn, just kind of laughs at the prince and is like, good luck in hell, and walks away and leaves him. So she doesn't even end up having a relationship with the prince. Rusalka goes back and becomes a water demon. So she just starts killing people. And then the prince does eventually come back to her. Spoiler alert. And begs her to take him back. And she says, look, if I kiss you, you will die immediately because that's what I do. And the prince says, I don't care. I deserve it. Do it. So she kisses him and kills him. But then she feels bad about it and commends his soul to heaven. But then she just ends up being a water demon the rest of her life and kills people. So it's kind of a sad story, but I prefer it.
So much worse than that.
He really did. He really did. And the presentation that I saw of it was at a like experimental theater where when Rusalka gets rejected at the wedding, they literally flooded the theater because she was like enraged. And that version, she killed everyone at the wedding party.
As was deserved. As
was deserved. And I love the fact that the foreign princess was just like, good luck in hell, and like walks away from the prince. Is like, you did this, brah, and just leaves. But
like she knew something a little too much before.
yeah, it was yeah. So it's a really fun. I think also like Yeji Baba gives Rusalka a chance to get out of the deal. Like she says, like, look, if you don't want to be a water demon, here's a knife, go kill the prince. And Rusalka's like, nah, I can't do it. I can't kill him. So then she just becomes a water demon, but then she ends up killing him later by kissing him. So all's well that ends well.
That sounds like a fun opera. when they flooded the opera house, did like water start filling up by your seats, or was it?
It was actually an interesting, like, it was you kind of like walked around. So each act was in a different place of this opera house, and for that one we were in seats, and it was maybe like an inch of water. So your shoes got soaked. Because I remember being like, oh God, I didn't wear shoes planning to get like waterlogged. And there's still another act of this opera left. But it was really interesting. And it was one where there weren't seats all the time. So sometimes you were just standing and watching from like a balcony. Sometimes you were in the same level as the performers, and performers would like walk around you singing. So it was a really interesting experience, which I think is one of the reasons it left such an impression on me. But also just, I think it's a beautiful story and a beautiful piece.
That is pretty amazing.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt when they flood the actual theater to get the point across that Rusalka's not happy about being rejected. Can relate. There's also a Decemberist song that's like a pop culture. It's called Rusalka, Rusalka, Wild Rushes, which is actually my name. I was worried when I picked my name for Twitch. I wanted to just be Rusalka. That was taken, as most people know if they've ever picked a name on Twitch, as most things are already taken. So then I did Rusalka, Rusalka because I knew this song existed, but I didn't know if somebody else would have had it. But they didn't, so I have it. But it's basically about it's from the point of view of a man who's being basically lured down to his death by a Rusalka. But he seems to be for it, whether that's because the Rusalka has like convinced him or because he's like the prince and he's done something where he thinks he deserves to be murdered by a Rusalka. That's up to interpretation, but
Actually,
No,
a good
he
song.
and I were on
yeah.
the same levels. We just wanted to die. We were like, "Yep, pretty lady, down we go."
Now I'm guessing the
worth
Rusalka
it, worth it.
I'm guessing the Rusalka in the opera had a back.
Yes, yeah.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, I did not know the whole like no back part. See the organs. I was not aware of that one.
Places you could find Rusalka is mentions of it. The Castlevania Order of Ecclesia has him in it as a monster. The Witcher 3 has him in it. Magic the Gathering trading card game. There is a couple different Rusalka cards. D&D has Rusalkas in older versions, not the 5e version. But you can always bring the older versions in. And there's actually a poem. There's also many different poems that involve Rusalkas.
And there's apparently a couple on Twitch.
Yeah. At least one joined here today.
Yeah, at least one.
So, question really fast:
Mhm.
Is there a difference between them and sirens?
I think so, in the sense of that. I think there's a very similar idea of because a lot of folklore is kind of overlapping with the concepts and ideas. So I think it's very similar of that sort of concept of women luring men to a dark and watery death. The main difference I know from sirens is that usually the sirens are depicted as having like ocean origin, but also bird features is actually the original siren. They were half bird, half woman, and then later became the like half fish, half woman. While Rusalka, while often confused with mermaids or sirens, are pretty much always humanoid, but apparently no back on them. And I think sirens are usually depicted as singing, where I could not find anything about Rusalka singing except for in the opera.
Interesting.
And that's because that's how operas work, I guess.
I seen one thing looking about singing, but it was mostly just their looks luring them. And
I mean, I guess whatever it takes to woo somebody, they're probably gonna try it, I guess.
I just remembered a couple different places I seen that Rusalkas were not actually invincible or ageless.
Oh,
They actually could die. And from what I seen in one source, it was using a silver cross or a silver knife. You could kill a Rusalka, or a Rusalka could actually age out of being a Rusalka because their life wasn't finite. They would actually have to, like if it was a accidental drowning, they would actually become a Rusalka and then live out the rest of their expected lifespan as if they were. Like if they were to live to be 80 and they died at 20, they'd be a Rusalka for 60 years before they ascended.
good to know.
Or if you were a Rusalka that when you're a human, got murdered, if somebody avenged your murder, you would be all good and not become a Rusalka anymore.
And
Just
if you were the baby and somebody threw a handkerchief in the air on the right day of the year, then you didn't have to be a Rusalka anymore.
Yep.
Perfect.
I guess we'll move on with the Mayhem.
More mayhem!
The modern times Rusalka. How many people do you think it'd be more widespread than just Ukrainian, Russian? I guess it's more widespread back then too, but you think we'd have more of them today?
For sure.
You think
I
they'd,
think so.
they inhabit bodies of water? Do you think we could have Rusalkas that live in swimming pools?
Voluntarily, no. Possibly accident, yes.
Yeah, or like if somebody drowned them in a swimming pool. I think you could, just based on the rules of like people drowning.
I feel
But I
like
think-
the chlorine's not good for those organs, though. So, like, I feel
That's
like
true. Be
They're
very
already
clean.
dead. Yeah.
But I agree with you where I don't think that would be by choice. I think that would be it'd be like a fish in a fish tank versus a fish in like a lake.
for
It's like
sure.
you're gonna choose the open water, I think.
And I feel like we would shut down a pool if we had somebody killing people in it. I feel like
It's a fair point. It's a fair point. If somebody shows up in your swimming pool backless, trying to woo you to your watery death. Probably gonna drain that pool, fill it in, make a little garden.
I think that's how you anger spirits.
Sometimes you gotta learn the hard way.
They just move up, get out, walk across to the local
Next
river.
pool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then terrorize the town. Let's go. It is an interesting concept, though. When you first asked that question, I was thinking, like, if a lot of Rusalka don't age out or get avenged or whatever, and you have these immortal creatures, then you have a density problem, right? Because then your lake is going to be, like, as more people drown, you're going to have packed, like, shoulder-to-shoulder Rusalkas, which isn't so great. I don't think they would like it. At least I wouldn't like that, but maybe they adapt with the times and realize just like people live in more cities now than they used to.
Yeah. There's always people making more and more man-made lakes too, so
That's true, yeah.
like gravel pits, and wonder if they would probably be sticking to the top shallower waters, I'd imagine.
Easier to drown people there, like lure them in. They're probably huge fans of global warming because they're like, yeah, more water everywhere. Yeah.
Probably not so much of the humans bulldozing over swamps and stuff as well. That'd be
not for that. No. Hard no on that.
be out there. They just follow the rivers. They're actually all in the sea right now. Couldn't find any recent sightings of Rusalkas anywhere.
You're looking at me right now, Silver.
Oh,
so rude.
recent drowning.
Oh yeah, I haven't been
claims.
active. I haven't been active in a while. Yeah.
They all just left the waters and now they're streaming on Twitch.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot easier to drown people on Twitch than to do in real life.
Just keep pressing the hydrate button on some of the streamers.
Yeah, you know it. That's how those hot tub streams got banned. That was actually Rusalka's doing. Like, but
that was the one who had Rusalka the first time. That was
Now I dislike them for multiple reasons.
How many drownings happen in the world a year? I wonder if there's a stat for that.
Probably, because I know they'll have like reports on accidental versus like I know of like boating drownings. They often have reports on that because I know somehow they have to have the statistic that shows that most of them are from alcohol, because I've read the statistic that like most drownings are alcohol related.
There's almost 4,000 a year in the United States from unintentional drowning.
Wow.
So
4,000 Rusalkas per year.
11
possibly.
deaths per day.
11. Well, but so a certain amount of those have to be female, because if we're assuming that men can't become them, that's still a lot per day. Joining the ranks.
90% men, but it's just
that's just your. That's an anecdotal. Like, I feel like it's probably more men.
I feel like mostly men.
I'm sure that number probably goes up during spring break and such as well.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
My husband's just nodding like, yeah, okay.
He agrees that men would be more likely to drowning?
I think he's judging the fact that I think it's mostly men, but he's not like arguing it either. So
he's playing his cards. Like he's picking the battles.
I feel like they wouldn't cause as much mayhem as we think. I feel like it'd be a pretty quiet thing. Like, we're not going to know whether or not it was a Rusalka or not that killed these men. So I feel like it'd be a pretty quiet mayhem. Like, to this day, they could be doing it and we wouldn't know.
Yeah. I think it's kind of hard to tell if someone's been tickled to death. I don't think that really comes up on the autopsy report.
It's perfect crime.
Crime. That or dance to death if they found him in the moonlight in June.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think also like a lot of these sort of like water related folklore were ways to explain like unfortunate drownings. Like no one wants to like assume, like just be like, oh, that person didn't swim too good or like whatever. So I think I know with like Kelpies, that was a common one too. It's just like anyone who drowned, you just kind of blamed it on a supernatural force just rather than facing the truth. And I think now that we have a lot more science and like possibly more witnesses to these things, it's also harder to blame like a supernatural force.
And with it being mainly water, and some of the claims said that Rusalki have green hair, it could have been kelp or something wrapping around swimmers' legs.
True.
So
they
couldn't get out.
Mm-hmm.
And this might be a trigger warning, I guess. So, but we're rated explicit, so
Good.
some of the young baby deaths becoming Rusalki were often blamed for I seen possibly a mother who had a child and didn't actually want the child for any reason, and they drowned the child.
Hmm. Yeah, I know some of the women too were like young women who could have like were pregnant and didn't want to carry the baby or had like the shame of that. As well as a common theme of women committing suicide by it, like because of rejection from a man, things like that. That was also a pretty common like way to become a Rusalka, was if you were a jilted young woman and you decided to end it, you became a Rusalka as well.
I think, like I said, I feel like the mayhem would be, even if they were still killing, it would be fairly low. I just feel like we wouldn't know if it was happening. Yeah, there's social media and stuff, but like I don't assume that they would try and kill if there was 10 of us. I'd assume they'd wait until it was a singular male or a cast off person from like the group that came over, and it would be a non-witness type situation.
If anybody's looking to find more or talk to you more, where can they find you at?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh,
You can
when I'm
promote
not
yourself?
when I'm not hanging out in a murky riverbed, I can be found on Twitch at Rusalka_Rusalka. That's my main area where I lurk these days. I do have a Discord, which can be accessed through that Twitch, and I have a Twitter, which can also be accessed through that Twitch, since I don't remember the name. It's like Rusalka 1. It was one of those where somebody was ahead of me, got it. But yeah, Twitch is the main game these days.
I know. I'll probably talk to you on your next stream, and because I'm usually there lurking as well.
Yeah, I always appreciate the lurk. I love the lurk. I'm a lurk queen myself, so.
Or causing chaos with eating Pokemon.
That is true. Yeah, we do talk about eating Pokemon more often than I would prefer. But it's fine. Some of them look quite delicious. We don't have to.
Usually I can relate a myth to a Pokemon in some way, but the Rusalka, I just couldn't find one. There was a couple that were close,
Yeah,
but
it's kind of hard. Yeah, I don't know enough because I'm old, so I don't know anything but like the original Pokemon. Maybe it's like just like a Magikarp, just like a real simple fish, but becomes super powerful. Looks normal, super powerful if you let it live for a while.
Join us again next Monday on Monsters, Myths, and Mayhem, found on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Anchor.fm. Silver and Chaotic talk about how monsters and myths came to be and how they would be received in modern-day society. Follow, like, and subscribe to support. Also find the podcast on Twitter and Discord with the links below to keep up to date with the newest merch and activity. Besides, who knows what mayhem we will get into next.
Do it. Subscribe. Rate it. It's really important. Rate it, or you'll become a Rusalka. Or maybe you will. If you want to become a Rusalka, rate it. If you don't want to become a Rusalka, subscribe. That's your options.